Imagine yourself about to embark on a journey of discovery. A journey through time and space that will take us back to the beginning of everything, to before any creation we know of. Close your eyes for a moment and visualize an empty universe, with no stars, no planets, no living beings. In this vast emptiness, there was only one majestic, sublime, and incomprehensible presence: God. But what would God's life have been like before he created the angels, these powerful and enigmatic celestial creatures? This question, full of mystery and fascination, leads us to reflect on the nature of an eternal, infinite, and absolutely complete being. Before creation, God already was an eternal being, without beginning or end, whose existence transcends everything we can imagine. He lived in a perfect and eternal communion within the Trinity, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. This relationship, marked by perfect love and absolute harmony, reveals a depth of existence that defies our comprehension. Visualize this divine communion, a bond of love so deep and perfect that it needed nothing else. God was not alone, he was and is the very essence of love, an infinite source of kindness and compassion. Before any creation, there was no loneliness, but rather an abundance of love and joy flowing within the Trinity. And why is this so important for us? Because it shows us that the creation of the angels, and eventually the creation of the universe and humanity, was not an act of necessity, but an act of pure generosity. God, complete in himself, chose to create in order to share his love, to expand his glory, and to invite others to participate in his eternal communion. Think about it. A complete being, immutable and self-existent, deciding to create. It's an impressive display of selfless love. Creation did not increase God's happiness, for he was already infinitely happy. Instead, it was an act of grace, a desire to include others in the experience of that love and perfection. So, as we reflect on God's life before the angels, we are invited to delve into the essence of divine love, to understand a little more about the nature of a God who is eternally full and yet chooses to create and share his love with us. Let's explore this deep and fascinating reality together, and let this vision inspire us, move us, and bring us even closer to the heart of God. Get ready for a journey through the mysteries of divine existence, a journey that promises to awaken your curiosity, touch your emotions, and expand your understanding of God's infinite love. After all, God's life before the angels is more than a theological theme. It's an invitation to explore the depths of a love that always has been and always will be. According to Christian theology, God is eternal and has always existed, having neither a beginning nor an end. He is immutable and self-existent, which means that he doesn't depend on anything or anyone to exist. This characteristic implies that, before the angels or the universe were created, God was already fully complete and perfect in himself. Imagine, for a moment, a being whose existence is not limited by time as we know it. For us, everything has a beginning and an end. Our lives, the days, even the stars in the sky. But God transcends this reality. He is eternal, the Alpha and the Omega, without beginning and without end. Try to visualize this. Before there was a before, God already was. He has always been. He is the great I Am, a constant and unchanging presence who not only exists in time, but who created the very concept of time. This idea of eternity may seem difficult to understand because we all live bound by time. Our lives are measured in seconds, minutes, hours, years. We are born, we grow up, we grow old. But God doesn't fit into this structure. He is immutable, which means that he doesn't change. While everything around us is constantly changing and evolving, God remains the same. His nature, his character, his love, all of this is constant, unchanging, eternal. And what does it mean to be self-existent? It means that God does not depend on anything outside of himself to exist. We need so many things to live: air, water, food, light. But God doesn't need anything. His existence is totally independent. He wasn't created, he wasn't made, he simply is. He always has been and always will be. This self-existence is one of the most impressive aspects of his divine nature. It is proof of his supremacy and absolute power. Now, think about what this means before the angels or the universe were created. God was already complete and perfect. He wasn't waiting for something to make himself more complete or happier. There was no emptiness in God that needed to be filled. Before he created anything, he already lived in perfect fullness. His perfection did not depend on his creation. He didn't create because he needed companions or because he was lonely. He created out of pure love and generosity, wanting to share his glory and goodness. This fullness of God is a deeply comforting concept. Knowing that God is unchanging and perfect means that his goodness and love for us are constant. They don't change over time. They don't decrease or increase. They are eternally perfect. This gives us immense security, because we can trust that the God who loves us today is the same God who will always love us. And it's not just comforting, it's also inspiring. Thinking about God's eternity invites us to lift up our eyes and look beyond our temporal and limited reality. It makes us think about the greatness of the Creator, about the majesty of a being who exists outside of time and space, and yet chooses to be intimately involved with his creation. When we reflect on God's eternity, we are invited to enter into a mystery that surpasses our understanding, but which also awakens our admiration and adoration. We are led to marvel at a being who is infinitely greater than anything we can imagine. And it is this wonder that draws us closer to him, that makes us want to know him more deeply and understand a little more about his infinite nature. In Christianity, God is understood as a Trinity: Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. This doctrine suggests that, even before the creation of the angels, there was a perfect and eternal relationship between the three persons of the Trinity. God's life, therefore, was not solitary, but involved a perfect and harmonious communion within the Godhead itself. To better understand this fascinating concept, we need to imagine something that is, at the same time, one of the most profound mysteries and beautiful realities of the Christian faith. Think of a relationship so perfect, so full of love and harmony, that there is no room for conflict, disagreement, or separation. This is the essence of the Trinity. First, there is the Father, the Creator, the one who gave birth to all things. He is the source of all life, wisdom, and power. The Father is the initiator, the one who loves and cares for his creation with an infinite and perfect love. In his eternal wisdom, he planned and created the universe and everything in it. Then there is the Son, Jesus Christ, who is the living expression of God's love. Jesus is God incarnate, the one who came into the world to show us the way to the Father, to save us and redeem us. But before coming into the world, the Son already existed in perfect communion with the Father and the Holy Spirit. He is the Word, the eternal Word who was with God in the beginning, and who is God, John 1 verse 1. And finally, we have the Holy Spirit, the presence of God who dwells in us, guides us, comforts us, and empowers us. The Holy Spirit is the manifestation of God's love and power in our lives, the one who sanctifies us and transforms us into the image of Christ. Before creation, the Holy Spirit also existed in perfect union with the Father and the Son. Now imagine these three persons of the Trinity existing eternally in a divine dance of love and communion. The Father loves the Son loves the Father, and this love is so perfect and powerful that it is personified in the Holy Spirit. There is no loneliness in God, because from all eternity, there has been a perfect community within his very nature. This communion is marked by a love so deep and perfect that it is difficult to conceive. It is not a love that is exhausted or diminished, but an infinite and eternal love, ever-growing and ever-fulfilling. Love within the Trinity is the essence of God himself. And it is this love that motivated creation. God, who lived in a perfect communion of love, wanted to share this love with created beings. When we understand the Trinity, we begin to see that the creation of the angels and the universe was not a necessity, but an act of generosity and grace. God didn't need to create anything to be complete or happy. He was already perfectly happy within the communion of the Trinity. But he chose to create in order to share his joy, his love, and his glory with others. This doctrine of the Trinity also shows us something profound about God's nature. He is a God of relationship. From eternity, God has lived in a perfect relationship of love and communion. This means that relationships are not just something we do. They are a fundamental part of who we are, because we were created in the image of a God who is relationship in his very essence. Life within the Trinity is a supreme example of unity and diversity. Three distinct persons, but one essence. This unity in diversity is the perfect model for all human relationships. It shows us that true communion and unity do not mean uniformity, but rather a deep love that respects and values differences. So, as we reflect on the Trinity, we are invited to participate in this divine communion. God calls us to enter into this relationship of eternal love that already exists between the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. He invites us to experience the depth of this love and to live in communion with him and with others. The essence of God is love. John 4 verse 8. Before creation, God already lived in a relationship of perfect and eternal love between the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. This internal love is often seen as the basis for all creation, including angels and humanity. Let's delve a little deeper into this fascinating and inspiring idea. Imagine a love so pure, so strong and so perfect that it needs nothing but itself to exist. This is the love that characterizes God's nature. Before creating the universe and all the beings in it, God was already immersed in an infinite ocean of love. Within the Trinity, this perfect love is shared between the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Each person of the Trinity loves the others with an intensity and perfection that is beyond our comprehension. The Father loves the Son with a perfect love. The Son loves the Father with a perfect love. And the Holy Spirit is the embodiment of this love, flowing eternally between the Father and the Son. This perfect love is not just a feeling. It is the very essence of God. When we say that God is love, John 4 verse 8, we are saying that everything God does, everything He is rooted in this perfect love. This love is active, creative, and always on the move. It is the force that drives all of God's actions, including creation. Now, think about the creation of angels and humanity. God was not obliged to create. He didn't need companions in order not to feel alone, because He already had the perfect companion within the Trinity. So why did He create? The answer is love. God wanted to share the joy and fullness of His love with other beings. He wanted others to experience the wonder of His eternal love. Creation, therefore, is an act of divine love. God created the angels, the heavens, the earth, and all life so that His love could be shared. He wanted His creatures to share in this love, to know the joy of living in communion with Him. The basis of all creation is the eternal and perfect love that exists within the Trinity. Let's consider the angels. These heavenly beings were created to worship and serve God. But their creation is also an expression of God's love. They are participants in this eternal love, called to reflect God's glory and goodness. They were created to live in harmony with God's purpose, experiencing the happiness of being in God's presence. And then, think of humanity. God created human beings in His image and likeness, which means that we were made to love and be loved. We were created to live in loving relationships with God and with others. Our capacity to love is a reflection of the divine love that created us. From the beginning, we were destined to experience the fullness of God's love and to live in communion with Him. This vision of God's love and communion gives us a new and profound perspective on creation. We are not just the result of an act of creative power. We are the result of an act of love. We were created because God wanted to share His love with us. He wanted us to experience the joy, peace, and happiness that come from living in His love. This leads us to a deeper understanding of our purpose. We are not here by chance. We have been loved since eternity, and we were created to love. Our life gains meaning when we understand that we were made to live in communion with God, to share in His love, and to share that love with others. God is self-sufficient, which means that He doesn't need anything other than Himself to be complete. Before the angels were created, He already possessed all qualities and perfections to an absolute degree. His existence does not depend on His creation, but rather creation depends on Him. Let's dive deeper into this concept, which is truly fascinating and full of profound implications for our understanding of God. When we say that God is self-sufficient, we are affirming something extraordinary about His nature. God doesn't need anything other than Himself to exist or to be complete. This is radically different from anything else we know. Think about how we depend on so many things for our existence and well-being. We need air to breathe, water to drink, food to eat, and even relationships for our emotional and mental health. Our existence is a web of dependencies. If any of these needs are not met, our lives are impacted. But with God, it's not like that. He doesn't need air, water, food, or anything else outside of Himself. His existence is independent and complete in every way. This self-sufficiency means that God possesses all qualities and perfections to an absolute degree. He is infinitely powerful, infinitely wise, infinitely loving, and infinitely just. There is nothing He needs to acquire or develop. God is perfect in Himself. His goodness, His love, His wisdom are all unlimited and inherent in His nature. Now, consider what this means before the creation of the angels or the universe. God was already perfectly complete. He wasn't waiting for something to make Himself more complete or happier. Before anything existed, God was already complete in His self-sufficiency. He didn't create the angels or the universe because He needed company or because He was lonely. He didn't need worshippers to validate His divinity. He was, and always will be, totally sufficient in Himself. This brings us to an impressive insight into creation. The creation of the angels, the universe, and humanity was not an act of necessity, but an act of pure generosity and love. God chose to create not because He needed to, but because he wanted to share his fullness and goodness. He wanted other beings to be able to experience his glory and share in his eternal happiness. God's self-sufficiency also teaches us about creation's absolute dependence on him. Everything that exists because God wanted it to exist. All of creation depends on him for its existence and sustenance. This means that our very life is a continuous gift from God. Every breath we take, every beat of our heart, all of this is sustained by the power and will of God. Furthermore, God's self-sufficiency gives us great security. We know that the God who created us and who sustains all creation does not change and does not fail. His perfection and completeness are eternal. We can trust him completely, because he is totally trustworthy. He never tires, never runs out, and never changes. His love for us is constant and unchanging, because it is based on his own perfect and self-sufficient nature. And there's an even deeper aspect to consider. God's self-sufficiency means that his love for us is totally selfless. He doesn't love us because he needs us, but because he chooses to love us. His love is a pure gift, given without any need or want. This gives us a deep understanding of how precious God's love is. It is a love that is offered freely, without conditions, simply because he is love. Although the Bible doesn't directly explain God's life before the angels, it does reveal that God had a plan and a purpose for creation. He created the angels and the universe for a specific purpose, which reflects his sovereign will and his desire to share his love and goodness. Let's explore together this fascinating idea that God, in his infinite wisdom, had a plan and a purpose from eternity. Think for a moment about how everything in creation, from the vast galaxies to the smallest of cells, seems to have an intricate design and purpose. This is no accident. Everything was carefully planned by God. Before creation, God, in his infinite wisdom and love, conceived a wonderful plan. He knew exactly what he was going to do and why. Every star in the sky, every plant, every animal, and every human being. We are all part of this divine plan. God didn't create the universe randomly or without purpose. He had a clear and specific goal in mind. This divine purpose is revealed in many ways throughout the Bible. From the very beginning, we see that God wanted to share his glory, love, and goodness with his creatures. He created the angels as powerful and majestic beings to serve and worship him. They are witnesses to his greatness and glory, serving as messengers and agents of his will in the cosmos. But God's plan goes beyond angels. He created the universe, with its immense galaxies and intricate ecosystems, as a stage where his glory could be manifested. Every part of creation, no matter how small, reflects something of God's nature and beauty. From the complexity of physical laws to the harmony of biological life, everything points to a wise and loving creator. And then, in an extraordinary act of love, God created humanity. He made us in his image and likeness, with the unique ability to know and love him. He placed us in a world full of wonders and gave us the responsibility of caring for it. From the beginning, God's desire was for us to experience his love, to live in communion with him and with each other, and to reflect his glory in our lives. This understanding of God's plan gives us a new perspective on our own existence. We are not cosmic accidents or products of chance. We are part of a divine plan, each of us with a unique and meaningful purpose. God created us because he wanted to share his goodness and love with us. He wants us to know the joy of living in his presence and to experience the fullness of life that he offers. And God's purpose is even more evident in the redemption he offers through Jesus Christ. When humanity turned away from God because of sin, he already had a plan for our salvation. In his infinite wisdom and love, God sent his Son, Jesus, to redeem us and reconcile us to himself. This act of sacrificial love is at the heart of God's plan for creation, a plan of redemption, restoration, and renewal. By understanding that God has a sovereign plan and purpose, our lives take on new meaning. No matter what challenges or difficulties we face, we can be sure that God is in control and that he has a purpose for everything that happens. His plan is perfect and he works all things for the good of those who love him and are called according to his purpose. Romans 8:28. Imagine for a moment the vastness of a limitless universe, a place where every star shines with an intensity that reflects the glory of its creator. In this scenario, before any angelic or human being, there is God, in his full and perfect essence. A God whose existence transcends time and space, whose wisdom is unfathomable and whose love is infinite. Now think about the fact that this God, who is self-sufficient and complete in himself, was not alone in an empty sense, but in an eternal communion of love and perfection within the Trinity, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Before any angel was formed or any atom in the universe took shape, there was already a perfect relationship, a love so deep and complete that it transcends our human understanding. And it is from this place of perfect communion and self-sufficiency that God conceived a plan. A plan not motivated by need, but by the desire to share the abundance of His love and goodness. Imagine an artist whose talent is so immense that his creation is an inevitable expression of his genius. So it is with God, whose divine plan is an inevitable expression of His perfection. God created angels, beings of light and power, to inhabit the heavens, to be messengers and executors of His will. But His plan didn't stop there. He created the universe, vast and complex, a giant canvas where His glory could be manifested in every detail, from the grandiose galaxies to the intricate molecules of a leaf. Every element of creation is a reflection of His greatness and creativity. And then God created humanity. Think about it. You and I were created in the image of God, with the capacity to know, love, and reflect the Creator. We are not mere cosmic accidents. We are works of art, designed and created for a purpose. God has placed us in a world full of beauty and wonders, a world that we have been called to care for and explore, revealing the goodness and wisdom of the Creator in every action. But as we know, human history has not followed a perfect path. Sin entered the world, distancing us from God. And here we see the even greater depth of God's plan. God, in His infinite mercy and love, had already prepared a way of redemption. He sent His Son, Jesus Christ, to rescue us, to bring us back into His love and communion. The cross was not an emergency plan, but the culmination of an eternal plan of love and sacrifice. By understanding these truths, our perception of life changes radically. We realize that we are part of a divine plan, that our existence has an eternal purpose, and that we are called to live according to that purpose. Every challenge, every victory, every moment of our life is a piece of this great plan, an opportunity to reflect God's love and glory. And now, as we close this journey of reflection, I want to invite you to consider the depth and beauty of this divine plan, not just as a distant theological concept, but as a reality that impacts every aspect of your life. God, in His perfection and self-sufficiency, chose to create us, chose to love and redeem us, and calls us to live in communion with Him. Think about the depth of this love. A love that does not depend on our actions, a love that is freely offered, a love that invites us to participate in something greater than ourselves. This is God's love, a love that manifests itself in His divine plan, a love that involves us and transforms us. And so I leave you with this message. You are part of a greater plan, a plan that is guided by the perfect love of a God who is complete in Himself, but who has chosen to share His fullness with us. May this truth inspire you to live with purpose, to seek communion with God, and to reflect His love in everything you do. Let's explore this divine plan together, living with the certainty that we are loved and that our lives have eternal meaning. May this journey lead us to a deeper understanding of God's greatness and the wonder of being His children. Because to understand the divine plan is to understand that our existence is a gift, an opportunity to participate in a story of love and redemption that began in eternity and will continue forever. And so we conclude our fascinating journey exploring God's life before the creation of the angels. It's amazing to think about the perfection and communion within the Trinity, God's love and self-sufficiency, and the divine purpose behind all creation. Each of these aspects helps us to better understand the greatness and infinite love of our Creator. Now, I want to invite you to continue this journey with us. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, do so now and activate the notification bell so you don't miss any of our upcoming videos. Your likes are very important to us and help us reach more people with these inspiring messages. Leave a comment below, sharing your thoughts on what we discussed today. What struck you the most? What moved you or made you think in a new way? We love reading and responding to your comments. And we have some incredible news coming soon. We're preparing a members group for the channel, where you'll have access to exclusive videos and special content that will deepen your understanding of these wonderful topics even more. Stay tuned because we'll soon be announcing how you can become a member and be part of this special community. Don't forget to keep watching our videos. There's more fascinating content waiting for you. Just click on the videos that are appearing on your screen now. Thank you very much for watching to the end. Your presence and support are essential to us. Until next time, and may God bless you greatly.